What's going on, guys? We are back at the Club and Sub Podcast, episode 53 for UFC 263 this weekend. We got Marvin Vettor versus Israel Adesanya as main event. We got Figueiredo Moreno 2 as the co-main event. And we got Nate Diaz, Leon Edwards for a 5-rounder. Luke, excited for this weekend?
Yeah, let's let it fly. Not a ton of action for me. I think, I got 6 plays, but nothing too heavy. Definitely some fun fights in there, though. So another Fig card. So we'll see how she goes.
As you see, John, our feared leader, as usual, is out this week, but a little busy with work, so I will be hosting again this week. As you know, we are brought to you by Bet Online. If you use the code CLUBSUB on your first deposit, you get bonus up to 50% up to $1,000. And as always, make sure you like and subscribe if you like the podcast. You know, we've been doing this for 53 episodes. I think, we're one of the better podcasts out on Twitter. So, give us some like and subscribe if you appreciate and support us. So I think C's going to join us at some point. So we'll just kind of rattle it off and get him in whenever we can. So Luke, first fight card, we got Carlos Felipe, Jake Collier. Who you got?
Yeah, not one that I thought I was going to be playing, just because Felipe's a guy I've done, I wouldn't say like a 180 on, but I've kind of just like bounced back and forth on him. Like I thought he was like shit at one point. I thought he was decent at one point, and I'm kind of back to like that he's not very good. I think at least in terms of the matchup, I think he's probably the faster guy here. Collier obviously maybe a little bit slower, but honestly, even with him coming in at the size he is, I do think he's still reasonably athletic. And I think in this fight he does have a few more tools, at least in terms of what he throws. Like Felipe is largely just kind of straight shots, boxing type of deal. But even the fight with Tafa, we saw Tafa have a decent amount of success, especially with the kicking game as well. And, that was a fight that a lot of people thought that Tafa won. I was actually on Felipe there, and I kind of agreed that, maybe not the best decision. Definitely not value with Felipe at -190 or whatever I played it at. So, people talk about, Collier comes in, gets smoked by Aspinall. There's that. Then, he has the fight with Vellante, and people say, oh, he looked decent against Vellante. It's Vellante, whatever. But then again.
Oh, did we lose him? Luke?
You still got me, Lags?
Yep. Yeah, I think you're frozen. I think you're frozen on the screen, but I hear you. Okay. All right, you're good now. Go again.
You still got me, Legs?
Yep.
All right. Sorry. Cut out there for a second.
No, you're good. You're good.
But yeah,
good.
I think at least at a decent dog number, I think Collier's, a decent play. No supreme degree of confidence in him at all. That's for sure. But I think he can at least make it, a moderately competitive, close fight. Felipe, not the biggest hitter at heavyweight either. So more tools. I think Collier's kicks will have an effect. I think his hooks will be there. I think he can give him a scrap. So, it's pretty much been one-way traffic on him. I largely understand it, and I think it honestly might continue to climb down. So we'll see.
Real quick, Luke, are you frozen on your screen? Because you're on my screen, you are frozen.
I'm moving on my screen, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, okay. That's all good. But yeah, so I largely agree with you as well. I mean, to be honest, I'm kind of pissed myself I didn't get to this tape earlier when he was sitting at +230. But I think even at +160, I think there's a ton of value, because I think this is largely a 50-50 fight. I really just don't think that Felipe's power is translated to the UFC. And that's kind of what's, I think, driving this line. Like, I thought, obviously, like, originally when this was -320, Carlos Felipe, like, you're thinking, okay, he probably just gets smoked again, similar to the Aspinall fight. But it's like, Felipe doesn't have that kind of power or that kind of athleticism. So it's like, this is probably a 50-50 fight, goes to decision. And I think Jake's the better striker, has a nice jab, and probably has a higher output here. So I got Collier by decision. I got him +160 money line and +370 by decision.
Solid.
Yeah, you're still frozen on my screen for some reason, but I don't know. Maybe I'll come out. You want me to come out and come back in?
Nah, let it just
keep going.
Keep rolling.
All right. So when I got the next fight, Faraz Ziem and Luigi Vendramini. So I actually just finished this tape up today, and I mean, there's not a lot of recent tape out there for Luigi, but I think for what there is, I think he's a solid enough grappler that he's going to get Ferocium to the mat pretty easily, and I think that he's going to be able to lock up a submission pretty fast. I think first round, second round, and those are my two small plays here. I have a half unit on Luigi by submission at plus 950, and I have a half unit round 1, round 2 at plus 370. I just don't think Ziem's defensive grappling is going to be enough.
Yeah, I'm actually more so on the violent side here too. Not a play I was originally looking to target, but Vendramini, jiu-jitsu black belt, wasn't able to find a ton of tape in terms of like his actual grappling and whatnot. But so that's, a bit of a question mark in that capacity from what we can actually see. But Ziem has been taken down before. It looks like his first level takedown defense isn't that bad, but on his back, it's kind of a little meh. And then Vendramini kind of just goes aggro on the feet. And I don't really like how easy Ziem is to, get backed up and whatnot. But I also think Ziem's probably the more technical striker of the two. And I think Vendramini is there to be hit as well. So it's kind of one of those fights, whoever's able to really get off on their game, I can see succeeding. Vendramini, also largely an early finisher too. I think Ziem's finished like 5 of his 11 wins too. So I think it's a good, solid fight to target violence in some capacity.
Yeah, agreed. Alrighty, we got the people's main event up next. We got Chase Hooper versus Steven Ocho Peterson. Luke, what do you got?
Once again, not a fight that I was thinking that I was going to be playing at all, but I actually think it's a decent fight for Steven Peterson. From what we've seen in the UFC, it's not particularly encouraging. There's even probably an argument to be made that he's not a UFC caliber fighter. But every fight happens in a vacuum, and actually the guy's base is grappling. He is a BJJ brown belt. I don't think he's ever been submitted in like 26 pro fights. He's got a decent back take and whatnot. So even in the event that Hooper is able to get him down, I don't think it's like Hooper insta-sub or anything like that. I think honestly Peterson could probably be fine on top. Largely, I think he should avoid that though, because I think his primary advantages come on the feet here. Hooper's pretty hittable, but I guess back to the grappling point too. I mean, Peterson does stuff takedowns at 75% as well. So I don't really understand all the movement towards Hooper personally. Once again, he's a crafty, funky guy. I get it, who seems to keep pulling stuff out, but was not that long ago where Homeboy was down 2 rounds to Peter Barrett and was on his way to losing that fight before Barrett had a lobotomy and gets leg locked. So I don't know, man. Not thrilled about investing in Steven Peterson, but I think, like I said, styles make fights. I think it's a decent fight for Peterson if he fights smart.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm totally with you there as well. This is actually another fight that I finished up today, and it's like, I'll be honest, I think it's like a must-bet spot for Peterson, even if it's just a small play, just because I think that on the feet, he kills Hooper with the pace and the pressure, and obviously Hooper's striking is pretty non-existent and his striking defense. And then on the feet, on the mat, like you said, I think Peterson can stay fine on top position there. I think that he is the better positional grappler here, obviously not submissional grappler, but I think he's going to stay fine here, to be honest. And I think that Hooper is going to struggle to get this fight to the mat where he succeeds. So I got 1 unit on Peterson here at minus 115. All right, and then we have Matt Favola getting a late notice replacement with Terrence McKinney. Luke, I didn't do any research at all with Terrence McKinney here. Little late notice here. What do you got for me?
Yeah, I haven't done a super deep dive into it as well, but McKinney seems to be a pretty decent prospect, but strength of competition overall is kind of a little iffy. I think that needs to be said, but in terms of just overall tools, wrestling background, seems to have decent hands, power on the feet. But he's another one of these, regional guys. I don't want to downplay him necessarily in saying that, but it is, got to call a spade, another one of these regional early finishers that always is a bit of a red flag coming into the UFC for me, because we see these regional guys come in and often that power and that finishing ability tends not to translate in the aggregate. and he's taking this fight on super short notice as well. So I think that needs to be noted, but I've also never been a huge proponent of Frivola. He's pretty hittable at space. He's really wild winging with his shots. Obviously, a decent wrestler, has had a couple of submissions, but I don't overtly rate his submission grappling either. So I do think Frivola should be favored. Like I said, I need to do a little bit more into it before I assign like a particular number.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to lie. I do think that McKinney, has paths here to make this fight a lot more competitive than current odds indicate. It's just the question of, whether he has 15 minutes of gas, assuming that we have an extended fight here and he can't put Frivola. Because that's one thing I will say with Frivola, despite him being hittable. I know he got deaded by Polo Reyes, but he has been dinged a few other times and, largely a pretty tough guy. So in general, I agree with Frivola being favored, but I don't know, man. I think McKinney might be able to give him a bit of a scrap. So no official prediction yet, but I think the line could be a tad wide.
Gotcha. Definitely got to look into it more myself as well. And then we got another interesting fight for sure. We got Pannie Kianzad versus Alexis Davis. Luke, I'll go with you again here. What do you got for me?
Yeah, I know. I think our boy John likes Mrs. Davis as always. He's an Alexis Davis truther, our boy.
He's an old woman truther, honestly.
He's an old woman truther. He loves his old women. Shout out John. Going into this, I was actually giving some credence to Davis, and I do think there is some credence to Davis in this fight from some perspective. If she gets takedowns, Pannie hasn't looked exactly great on bottom in the times that she's been there. We saw even in the fight with Chase San, she was kind of getting beat up on the feet, shooting sloppy takedowns, got her back taken, subbed. A couple other fights as well has looked a little concerning on bottom, but as per every Alexis Davis fight, obviously she's going to come forward. She's going to let her hands fly. But in terms of pure striking, I think Pannie's much faster. I think she can kind of play that stick and move game on Davis, largely probably stay upright, and work her way to a decision. But I mean, I can't really hate on anybody taking a play on Davis just because I do think there's an argument there and there's an angle there. But I think Pannie's going to be a bit too fast for her in that boxing game. I like Pannie to win on the cards.
Yeah, I'm kind of similar opinion. I don't have a too strong of a take here, but I kind of just ever so slightly lean Pannie. I think he's just going to be faster on the feet, that better footwork, just obviously better overall boxer, just going to be able to tag Alexis from the beginning of the fight to end of the fight here. And I think it's going to be tough for Alexis to really, get her game going. But to John's point, obviously for Davis, I think it's going to be a close, gritty fight. I wouldn't lay the chalk here with Pannie Kianzad. So more power to him if he ends up making the play.
Oh, he hasn't played it yet?
I don't know. I don't know if he has or hasn't.
I thought he did play her.
I haven't seen anything.
Oh,
if he did,
maybe I spoke too soon. I don't want to speak for John. Apologies, John. I thought you played her.
Yeah. All right, so we got our next fight here in the featherweight division. Movsar Evloev, Hakeem Dawodu, and to be honest, I think we've seen nothing but pretty much public love for the most part for Hakeem here, and I kind of think it's a good matchup for Evloev. To be honest, I think his striking has been on the feet. Obviously, it's ever improving, but getting this fight to the mat is where obviously I think he needs to do that. But my issue is I don't think Hakeem has enough power nor enough volume. Like he's not great in any one aspect in striking to really make me believe that he's going to be able to stop Evloev and doing his game. Evloev doing Evloev things, grappling, cage control, rinse and repeat. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a struggle for Dawodu to win minutes here outside of, knocking him out. But I think Evloev is a pretty solid technical striker, and I think this is going to be Evloev doing Evloev things, and this is an Evloev decision for me. So I got a unit on Evloev by decision, -105.
I don't hate it, man. I think that's probably the play if you are to play.
Sorry, real quick. I wouldn't recommend laying the chalk here, even though I do think that he has him covered here. I just think that Evloev, as we've seen, and obviously 4 fights in the UFC, they've largely been close, but he's largely won decisions, fairly. I don't know how to explain it. Like they're close, but not competitive. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, I kind of gave some credence to the Evloev decision thing too, but honestly, I'm not really in love with the number because I'm giving a little bit more credence to Dawoodu in the fight than you are personally. I've been like a low key Dawoodu truther in some regard. Um, I I think he's a decent fighter and actually has a decent ceiling personally. I mean, his first level takedown defense is pretty solid. So to your point, really what the fight comes down to, if he can keep Evloev off of him. But there was even a couple points in his fight with Tuhugov. I know Tuhugov didn't shoot a ton of takedowns in that fight, but there was times where he was able to get in and he tried to, transition chain to the back, and Dawoodu shucked him off, man. There was a couple spots in that fight where Dawoodu really impressed me from like even a second level takedown defense perspective. Granted, Evloev's a better wrestler than Tuhugov, 100%. Evloev is an absolute monster. I concede that. But there have been a lot of fights, too, where Evloev has been content to stand and strike for extended minutes as well. So, once again, I didn't play Dawoodu here. I respect Dawoodu plays over plus 200. I think there's a valid case for that as value. But also, to play devil's advocate against myself, too, it really has a trap by the number type of feel on Dawoodu, where I think you can make a solid value-based case for Dawoodu. But to your point, he's not a guy really running away with fights either. And I do think Evloev probably does get him down, probably does get 5+ minutes a top time, is able to, win a, Russian coast, type of grinding based decision where you can say, on the outcome, probably it'll be like a 29-28 Evloev competitive fight, justify your value at your plus 200, but you're still taking an L. It just has one of those, type of feel kind of fights. But once again, I do not hate anybody taking the shot on Dawoodu, because I do think he is the faster, crisper boxer here. And I think he can have some success at space, but yeah, that's just my take.
So my big thing last on this fight is just that in that last fight with Tuhugov wasn't shooting from the start. He didn't shoot until 2 minutes left in round 2, whereas Movsar, in every single one of his fights outside of the friendly fight, which he didn't shoot a single takedown, which because he didn't need to, he's taken down his opponents at least once every single first round. So I wouldn't shock me. I don't think he's going to deviate from the game plan here. Takedown, rinse, repeat. I think minus 105 is a solid play for my decision. All right, and then we got another tricky one here with Lauren Murphy and Joanne Calderwood. So I'll start off here. I originally going into this tape, I like me some JoJo minus 110, but by the time I got to it and everything, JoJo minus 150, I'm kind of not really inclined to play that. Like, I think Lauren more so has success in these type of gritty, type of physical type of fights, and I think that's kind of what she could make. This type of fight with JoJo, I kind of think she could make this type of like a dirty, close type of fight. And I don't know. Originally, I came into this thinking JoJo, but I think it's more so of a 50-50 fight. And I think it's going to be really close. What about you, Luke?
Yeah, I kind of slightly lean to JoJo as well, but I know a lot of people are really hot on playing her, and I definitely understand it from some perspective. Her metrics are absolutely phenomenal. We all know that volume is king in WMMA. I think over 6 significant strikes landed per minute. She just lets the shit fly. Very, very hittable, though. Eats, I think, almost 4. She kind of squares her stance, a lot of naked kicks, that type of thing. But it's because she's so high volume. She's, I think, outpaced every single opponent she's fought that's hit a 3rd round or later, which is one hell of a feather in the cap to Calderwood. So I definitely get it. But honestly, Murphy, my opinion on her has her stock with me has started to go up a little bit, not just because, she's on the 4-fight run, but I think in terms of like her game, even at 37, I think we're seeing the best Lauren Murphy right now in 2021. Like, she's been proactively wrestling and grappling more. I know it was only her first sub win in her, I think her last fight over Shakarova. I know a lot of people on Twitter actually hit that sub play at like a really big plus number. That was a super sharp bet. But that's kind of my thing with Calderwood. I think, was it?
I think it was something crazy like that. Yeah.
Damn. I didn't,
because she's never hit one. She's never hit one before. So
yeah, in like 15 fights or something. But she is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. I think she got away from the lab, started training somewhere else. It seems like what the move she made was good. New strength and conditioning coach, new nutritionist. She just seems to be in a really good spot. So in terms of the fight, we have seen Calderwood taken down, and Calderwood is a girl who will play guard. in multiple fights she has. So I think even in listening to some interviews, Murphy pretty much acknowledged like my exact take on the fight, that she knows she's at a volume disadvantage. She knows she's at a speed disadvantage. She knows she has to come out here and wrestle because she's probably going to lose a decision if she doesn't. So I think we're going to see Lauren Murphy come out here and shoot some takedowns. So there's going to be some rubber meat in the road here, where if JoJo just tries to play guard, she is aggressive. She'll elbow, she'll throw up triangles, arm bars. I concede that. But I don't think Lauren Murphy's been subbed. I could be wrong about that. Maybe she was once or twice. So if you know that's the case, and Lauren Murphy's proactively shooting takedowns here, and JoJo decides to play from her back for 3 to 4 minutes, I mean, the path is there for Lauren Murphy here. So I guess I would say, you know, at -150 for Calderwood bettors, I'd say pump the brakes a little bit, because I think you might be looking into the numbers a little bit too much. And one last quick point, and I'll shut up. I did bet Jessica Eye over Calderwood in the last fight. Obviously turned out like shit, but Jessica Eye decided to wait till the second round to shoot takedowns. When she shot the first one, it came easy, got 2 to 3 minutes of control time, actually did win the second round on one judge's card. And then I think the last 3 of hers got stuffed. That's because just she was shooting from far out and shit. But my point is that if the game plan is clear for Murphy and she's coming in here and wrestling, I think the people who are, you know, backing the Calderwood volume narrative might be sweating their tickets a little bit. I think, honestly, at this price, I'd be more inclined to take the shot on Murphy, but still not enough for me. Yeah. I can definitely see Joanne winning a volume-based decision too. Kind of a plant your flag kind of fight, where I would want probably +150 if I wanted to play Murphy.
Yeah, for sure. I get that. And another, you know, rematch that we knew we never really wanted. We got Eric Anders and Darren Stewart. I'll start off real quick because I'm just going to be brief here. I think, speaking of pumping the brakes in the last fight, I think people need to pump their brakes in this fight. I don't think this is an easy, like, smash Eric Anders spot because he, you know, knocked out Darren Stewart in the last fight. It's like, we've only seen, you know, 4 minutes of Eric Anders at Fight Ready since, you know, I mean, before that, he was losing close competitive fights because he wasn't fucking throwing. And now he decides, okay, now he's going to come forward against Darren Stewart. And it's like, I mean, I favor him still here. I favor the durability here. And obviously this fight is at 205. The last fight was at 185. But, I mean, -150 Eric Anders versus +140 that he was last time. I definitely pass for me, for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing, where this line essentially completely flipped based on outcome, which I guess logically makes sense. I mean, the guy just went out there and quote unquote finished the guy in the first round. So now Anders is the favorite. I understand it, but kind of to your point, I think it could also be a trap too, because honestly, going into the first fight, I also did favor Stewart. And going back to the first fight too, I mean, in those like very, very early minutes, the reason why Anders closed distance is because he was getting hit in the face and getting hit in the face a lot by Stewart. And so that's why he decided to go to the clinch and then start peppering, trying to shoot takedowns. He landed the big shot. Both guys went life or death. And then obviously the knee happened and whatnot. But really kind of an interesting dynamic to that first fight. Honestly, I could see a lot of adjustments being made from both guys going into this one. And we see a very slow traditional fight between both guys. Because to your point, Lags, that's kind of been the MO on Anders, and you know why he's been in these close fights or even losing some of these too, is that he's just not letting his hands go. Now the move to Fight Ready, but to your point, only 4 minutes. Is that really enough to say that you know his game plan is 100% on point? Has he drastically improved? We just don't know. So I guess for everybody to completely flip and change their tune from a betting perspective, I'd be a little hesitant. I could honestly see a very diametrically different fight. Maybe Anders still wins. That's fine. But I don't necessarily know if we see these two guys just meet in the middle again and just start trying to kill each other. I could see like a really slow paced fight where both guys are landing some big shots. And that's another quick point too. I mean, both guys in the aggregate have proven to be pretty durable. Very hittable, but both guys have proven that they can, you know, take a shot over the long term. So we'll see. I don't know. I kind of think a sneaky angle for the fight, if you were looking to play it, the fight goes the distance at -115. It would be super sweaty. But
that's the thing too. Actually, real quick, I actually think in the first fight, I actually did play the fight goes the distance because I think FanDuel actually dropped it at a much lower number than the market had. I think it was like minus 160, maybe something like that. And it got a push because obviously we got a no contest out of it, but like it wasn't looking good
Yeah.
because it's
I don't know.
I mean, historically these guys are two pretty durable guys, but like, I mean, these guys also throw heat. So
yeah.
kind of playing
I
with
don't know.
fire with
I don't know.
that.
Like I said, it's my sneaky Eddie Bravo tinfoil hat take, fade the outcome of the first fight, and we see something different because I think it's really in play. But they could just go out there, swing to death, and someone goes down again. It's really a fight I don't want to be invested in personally.
What Luke's trying to say is he's betting Stewart by decision.
I couldn't. I can't. I can't. Oh, that would be oh, blood pressure, hair just falling out immediately. No, yeah.
All righty, Luke. We'll kick you off with this one. We got fight of the night. I guess maybe not fight of the night considering we got the title fights coming up, but I think a fight of the night contender for sure. We got Drew Dober and Brad Riddell. Who you got?
Really, really interesting fight. I know it seems like, well, I shouldn't say a ton of people. Obviously, Dober money has kind of slowly trickled him, but it's not like he's gotten massively steamed or anything. I did a pretty deep dive on this one, and I think really the interesting component is in terms of how Riddell is losing, it's because he's getting grinded out, he's getting wrestled, but he comes from that kickboxing background. I think he's a pretty solid striker, to be honest. It's just that guys have recognized that, and that's really why he's been in some competitive fights, despite actually even winning all three of his UFC fights. But there's some grinding in the Mustafayev fight, a little bit in the Malarkey fight. Then those guys went life or death. Then Alex De Silva took the first round off of him, had some wrestling success, decent ride time. But what's interesting about this fight is I don't think Dober's going to be out here shooting takedowns. That's just really not his game. He comes from that Muay Thai background. He likes to stand and strike too. So that's where I think I give a tad bit of credence to Riddell, just in the sense that I think Dober's going to give him the kind of fight that he needs to succeed. But at the same time, I would still slightly lean Dober, the counter hooks, the power game. Riddell, hits reasonably hard, but hasn't been a big finisher, at least in the UFC. Finished a bunch of bums back on the regionals, but in the UFC, power hasn't translated. Dober, it has over much higher level guys, Hernandez, Hack Press, putting those type of guys out. It's solid. So I definitely agree with Dober being favored, but I kind of just see it being a bit of a slugfest. But honestly, a slugfest where nobody goes out. I think we could actually just see a good old solid three round war here, which is why I would also not feel great about backing Dober. I understand the angle. I do. I think he deserves to be favored, but in a kickboxing match with some pocket exchanges in between, I just don't really know how Dober's minus 200 in that scenario. That's just me. I just give a little bit more credence to the Riddell striking. I know it's hard to say just because of what we've seen in the UFC from him in those fights hasn't looked great. Strength competition a little bit lower, but in terms of technical striking, I think he's decent. I think it's going to be a competitive scrap, but I still favor Dober to get it done.
Has Dober taken that much steam that he's up to 200 now?
No, I was just saying, like, in terms of if you were
if you had a big bet,
if you were gonna bet him, that you would probably have to cap him around minus 200 or so.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So for me, I am on the Drew Dober side, and then I guess quick point to the grappling. He actually did hint that he has been had been working his grappling and wrestling a ton since the Makata fight. So he said, "Don't be surprised if he comes out here and mixes in the grappling here." Obviously, fighter interviews.
I think it would be smart.
It would be. And I think I'm not going to say like he's going to get him down with ease, but like it would be interesting just to mix it in because obviously we've seen struggles from Brad in the past and we haven't really seen him improve those struggles. And that's my kind of thing here in this fight where you touched on that Brad's, largely been fighting grinders. That's my thing. He's largely been fighting grinders. He hasn't fought a good enough, solid striker. Jamie Malarkey is a decent striker, but he's more or less a punching bag, I think. Dober's got solid defense, solid power, solid durability, and good cardio. Like, I think by far this is Brad's, hardest fight to date. And I think that, I just think Drew mixes the game up well enough. And obviously, I'm not going to say it's a walk for him to, mix in the grappling or whatnot, but I think just that aspect in general, I think that's huge as well. But my thing also is that I think Drew in these type of like brawly exchanges is very technical. I think he is that kind of like wild man that's going to overextend and leaves himself count. I think he is very technical in these types of brawls. So I favor him in that type of scenario. I think, like you said, I think this probably does go to decision. It probably is a war. But, I favor Dober on output here, the harder shots, and I think he could potentially mix in the grappling here. So I got Dober, 1.5 units at minus 130.
Gotcha. Is my cam still frozen, by the way?
No, you are good. I actually was going to tell you that a little while ago. It's
sweet.
like it's been like, yeah, you've been good now.
All right, cool.
All righty, Luke. We got Paul Craig, Jamal Hill. What do you have for me?
Well, I mean, I honestly, I would not hate anybody taking a flyer on Paul Craig just on the premise of there are still questions on what happens if, Jamal Hill is quote unquote flattened. That was, the looming question as to why I think damn near everybody in the community bet Klitz and Abreu black belt over Jamal Hill, and Abreu got iced in the first round. I know Stosic took him down, I think 5 or 6 times, but he was largely just kind of able to butt scoot, work his way to the fence. But we still haven't seen him, really with his shoulders on the mat in any scenario. But Paul Craig isn't the greatest wrestler in terms of like technical proficiency, but actually going back and looking at his numbers, I guess takedown metrics actually aren't that bad. He lands over 2 takedowns per 50 minutes. Took down homeboy Ankalaev a couple times. I don't think nobody anticipated that. Granted, he went ahead and got swept very shortly after on both of those takedowns, as Craig's, more of a bottom player. But no, I mean, that's just kind of the looming question out there that needs to be said. I think that does need to be said for the fight. But I'm also on the side that Jamal Hill comes out there and smokes him. We have multiple fights to suggest that, Paul Craig is not the bee's knees defensively. When guys come forward, they blitz him. He's going down a decent chunk of the time. And that's the thing with Hill. He's kind of got that bouncing in and out movement, big power, straight shots. I think with how relatively upright Craig's stance kind of leaves his chin out, I think just one of those big shots comes out and puts Craig down early, and we don't get any more Jamal Hill grappling questions answered personally. But I don't know. Like I said, I think like throwing a flyer on a Craig sub, I really wouldn't hate if, Hill KO. Would I play minus 300 on Jamal Hill with that looming question out there? Absolutely not. No. I would not. I don't really know how anybody could, to be honest, because that's a very important component of this fight. Regardless if you think he comes out there and smokes him in 2 minutes, it still needs to be taken into consideration, and I don't think you can. That's not something you can disregard because the hole is still there. I don't think anybody can disagree with me on that. So, but like I said, more so on the side, Hill smokes him. I think under 1.5 could be interesting. Fight doesn't go to decision if you can parlay props. I think that's probably a solid look. I know you have a slightly different prop opinion, so I'll let you take her away, Legs.
And actually, real quick, which is interesting, I saw that the over is actually taking a little bit of money. I see the over is minus 130 now.
Is it?
The under 1.5 is now plus 100. I saw it originally, it was like minus 110, minus 115. So that's a little interesting. So again, like I'm example A of what Luke was originally talking about. I don't think you should be playing the juice here with Jamal Hill. I think you should be playing the KO prop, which I'm doing. I'm playing 1 unit Jamal Hill KO plus 145, and it's like I think he's going to kill him at space here. It's whether or not Craig gets him down. I just don't think his wrestling is that good enough in this type of matchup with Jamal Hill. I think he's just too good of a striker, and I think his movement on the feet is just going to be too much for Craig. But again, I don't think that minus 300 is justified just because we haven't really had those questions answered from a grappling perspective. But I don't know. Paul Craig, triangle surprise me here? Not in the slightest. Because Jamal Hill under 10 fights, it is what it is. But I largely think Jamal probably kills him on the feet. I like the under 1.5 as well, though.
Yeah, and one thing I will say for Craig's just been a complete weasel. Like I did not think his stay
Yeah,
in the UFC would be this long at all. I thought he would have gotten cut a long time ago, but he's just managed to pull this stuff out, right, wrong, and different. You
yeah,
like once again, I'm not high on Paul Craig at all, but
yeah.
the
I'm
guy
either.
the guy consistently comes in here and pulls shockers out here every once in a while. So it's, again, be a little conservative with your Jamal Hill parlays.
I mean, this is a guy who I bet on Shogun Hula last fight. I had a unit on him. I think it was plus 170 is what it was. I personally, I just thought that was a little bit crazy, but yeah, I mean, that was bad.
I
Bad on
think
my
that was
part.
more of a product of Shogun just being done than Craig looking great,
For
to be
sure.
completely honest. But
For
that's
sure. And
just
then,
me.
yeah. Yeah. And, I knew that going into it too. So is what it is. All right, Luke. Damian Maya, Bilal Muhammad, hot takes.
Well, I guess my take might be slightly hot. Maybe not based on the money line, but actually I am on the over 2.5 here, which traditionally probably is not a great angle to take in Damian Maya fights. Obviously, phenomenal submission grappler, very good wrestler. Not quote unquote pure, Greco freestyle guy, but for a base BJJ guy, probably the best jujitsu based wrestler out there ever. The guy does a great job of getting in closing distance once he gets a hold of guys. That body lock is nasty. Those trips, even if he can't get the takedown, he gets those backpacks and just rides guys. We even saw what he did to Masvidal in that fight. Sneaky angle didn't finish Masvidal, backpacked him for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so really what my take is that Muhammad stuff's takedowns at 85%. I know that he hasn't been uber aggressively wrestled in the past, but he has fought a lot of guys with grappling proficiency in the past too. And I think Bilal obviously knows what he's coming into in this matchup. He's got to stay on his bike. He's got to stick and move. And just based on the base Bilal Muhammad style, he's a high volume outside point fighter. That's what he does traditionally. And so I think that style just in general is going to play really well into being anti-wrestle, takedown defense acumen aside. Just the stick and move type game. I think he's faster. I think he's just going to kind of be able to pot shot from the outside. And then this might even be a hot take too. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that if Maya does get him down, that Bilal is insta sub. He is a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I think his grappling is a bit underrated. Obviously, is Maya a better grappler than Bilal? 100%. I'm not saying that, but really going back through Maya's rap sheet, like I think because of how high pedigree he is, and I'm not disrespecting him, I'm not saying he's not or anything like that, but I think when people think of Damian Maya, they just think all of the wins, he's just taking everybody down and he's subbing them. Not really the case, man. There's been a lot of fights where he's, had success, gotten guys down, and have went to the cards. Guys have been able to be defensively responsible on him multiple times. So it's not like every single time he gets guys down, they're absolutely fucked. And then we saw, that 3-fight skid where he wasn't able to get guys down. Granted, super high level guys right at the top, the Usmans, the Covingtons and whatnot. I hear that, but that's kind of the blueprint though. All those fights, he was not able to secure takedowns. And what happened? He got picked apart for the better part of the fight and lost. So I got the over 2.5 at -165. I'm going to have a few drinks for this one. I'm going to be sweating this one a little bit. I might even honestly take a small little flyer on Maya by sub as a small hedge out of the play. But I don't know, man. It's just one that I'm really not going to be scared of outcomes. And I think I have a decent angle on the fight. And to be honest,
Yeah.
the longer the fight goes, obviously, the more it probably favors Bilal. But in the over 2.5 angle too, that also covers my base instead of just laying the chalk on Bilal. Not only am I getting 60-70% better price than laying the money line on Bilal, it also covers my base for a Maya control based decision as well, assuming Bilal can be defensively responsible. Once again, that's not a super high percentage outcome. I hope it doesn't come down to that, but it is an outcome that I think factors in a reason why I made the bet too. So it's I shouldn't say it's super sneaky given that it's, a minus number, but I think it's
Right.
a price in a bet that's flying just a tad under the radar that I think is a decent look for this card.
Yeah, I think this fight to me, it's tricky to be honest. I think there's just a ton of unknowns. Like you got on the Bilal side, like you touched on. Nobody's really tried to, proactively grapple him in the UFC, and it's like well, that's kind of the big question mark here. I mean, that is Damian Maia's game. That is his bread and butter. So it's like that alone minus 250 Bilal. It's like that's tough. It's a tough ask just on that alone. And then like I know a lot of people were talking about, obviously I agree that I don't think Mike's cardio is very good. Like outside of round one, if he isn't able to sub him here, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to sub him in rounds 2 and 3. But like, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Bilal is going to finish him late either. Like, I think if Damian Maia isn't subbing him in that first round, I think your best cashes. I like the over 2.5 quite a good bit here as well.
Yeah. And hey, man, Bilal's got 10 wins in the UFC, only finished 2 of them. I mean, he's not a big power threat historically. And fun fact, one of them came by sub, one of them came by ground and pound. 2 outcomes that aren't happening here. He's never just blown the doors off of anybody on the feet. So, sneaky angle. I really like the bet.
Yeah, and originally I was looking into Bilal decision, but again, the kind of thing is giving me the pause is that we haven't seen the grappling tape enough. So
yeah. But what I will say, I respect anybody taking a play on Maia. I mean, Damian Maia at a decent size plus number, guy's dangerous, guy's world class. I can respect any plays there.
Alrighty, in the first of our 3 5-round fights, we got Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz, which I would say is probably a number 1 title fight or number 1 title contender type of fight. And, I'll start off here. I mentioned this in my prop article this week. Why is this fight even being made, to be honest? It's like Nate in his last fight against Jorge gets absolutely destroyed within 3 rounds, and then he's getting a higher ranked opponent, Leon Edwards. It's like I think more so or less, it's like they're just trying to push Leon's name off of Nate, and I think that's largely what's going to happen here. I think Leon is just going to be too fast, and he's been too active in the cage lately that I think he's going to be way too much for Nate. I think the body kicks and the head kicks, leg kicks, just kicks in general, I think Leon's just going to be able to blow Nate out of the water, to be honest with you. I mean, I know a lot of people are maybe saying Nate has a chance here, but I think Leon's going to be way too much for Nate here. I have 1 unit on Leon by KO at plus 145. I think cut stoppage within the first few rounds for sure.
Yeah, I wish I had like all my Nate Diaz gear and
I know, I'm sorry. I'm really shitting on Nate here, but to be honest, I just think Leon is just, that one step above. He is that elite level of fighters in this division. I like, for me, high regards, it's Kamaru, Colby, and Leon. Those 3 guys.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Leon definitely obviously deserves to be favored, but I'm not going to lie. I do think the line is a tad wide.
Yeah.
Solely based on the fact that Leon only lands a little over 2 significant strikes per minute. Nate comes forward. Nate spams volume. Nate has 25 minutes of gas. Nate, black belt in jiu-jitsu. I think that's not really that big of a deal. But I'm just saying a guy who comes forward in a 25-minute fight and a guy who doesn't throw a ton, who has had a 48-47 fight with Cerrone, has went to a split with Gunnar Nelson. He's been in some close fights before. I'm just saying. But to your point, I think Leon is the faster party here. I think he's going to be stinging Nate with counter shots. But honestly, even on the feet, despite me thinking he can largely just kind of keep range and pot shot like that, I think really the path to least resistance actually would be for Leon just to wrestle. We've seen Nate get taken down and get controlled before. When we have seen Leon on top, he's more so lay and pray, but pretty positionally responsible. He'll posture out if anything's thrown up. I think it's just an easier way to aid in him winning rounds. I'm not saying he has to dive on legs, for 25 minutes or anything. But once again, given that volume concern, even though that, he'll probably be landing the crisper, cleaner shots, probably winning the rounds based on that. Optics, still Nate is going to come forward. So I think he should wrestle. But I also do have a sneaky angle with, Nate wrestling a little bit too. We saw it in the Pettis fight. I thought that was a really great game plan from Nate to mix it in. He started to get stung with some shots from Pettis. He went to the clinch. He got some takedowns. That's not something we've seen from Nate in recent years a ton. But if you go back to the earlier part of his career, he actually wrestled and grappled a ton. How much success does he have doing that to Leon? Probably not a ton, probably pretty limited. But listen, I'm not trying to make like an uber strong case for Nate Diaz here. I'm just saying, I think there are certain things he can do to give him his best chance he needs to succeed, especially if I think he should go to the clinch, should go to try to wrestle and do that, because one, that's going to limit him taking a ton of clean counter shots at space. It's going to limit him taking a ton of kicks and whatnot, and maybe get some, cage push, make it greasy, grindy, that type of deal. All I'm saying is I think the line is a little wide on Leon at this point. Would I play Nate at plus 400? No. But a little personal flyer I did play was Diaz by decision at plus 1,000. Once again, no supreme degree of confidence in that at all. It's just solely predicated on the fact that the guy has 25 minutes of cardio. He does throw a lot of volume. He does come forward. Maybe has, cage push, some sort of wrestling upside to just make the fight closer in a long fight. Sub 10% on Diaz by decision, a guy who in the aggregate has proven to be durable, but got his ass kicked by Masvidal, got dropped twice by Connor. The later part for Nate in terms of the durability is definitely dropping a little bit, but plus 1,000, I think it's worth a little degen nibble personally.
Yeah, no, listen, I can't hate. Plus 1,000, I think it's worth it, even though I have a Leon KO bet. All right, Luke. Co-main event. We got Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno. It's the rematch from the draw a few months ago. What do you think?
Yep, no strong opinion. Didn't tape this one. I made a credo like a couple fights ago. I don't do this too often. I just said I'm done betting Fig fights. He's a statistical and analytical anomaly, but at the end of the day, the guy's good. The guy wins. His fights are just so difficult for me to assess when I'm actually watching them and seeing what's working, what's not. Certain guys have made things closer. The one fight in Brazil, with the Monkey King, I can't remember what his name is. I thought he won that fight. He got robbed in Brazil. There's just a lot of things that have given me pause with Figueiredo over the years. And like I said, the guy wins. He wins. And so he's one of those guys similar to like Dustin Ortiz. Yeah. He's just one of those guys that kind of falls into like the Derek Lewis type category, where you can't look at their fights through the same lens that you look at, 98, 99% of other guys through, because they're just anomalies. And at the end of the day, they win. So
real quick. Not Dustin Ortiz, Jared Brooks. I'm done. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. What the fuck was I saying Dustin Ortiz for? Sorry, guys. Few line of quotes. But no, my last point is that obviously, given the last fight, once again, if you're looking at the fight through a traditional lens, very close, very competitive fight. Moreno's plus 200 right now. In virtually any other scenario, I would be betting Brandon Moreno here, because logically, why wouldn't you? The guy just gave him a super competitive fight over 25 minutes, and now the guy's fucking 33% implied to win the fight. That makes no sense at all. But like I said, statistical, analytical anomaly. Stuff just does not go good for me in betting these type of fighters, and I just end up just chucking my money in these bonfires, and I'm just consistently wrong about them for right, wrong, or indifferent. So I'm not going to do it. But once again, in my opinion, gun to my head from a value perspective, it's 100% Brandon Moreno.
See, I can't really disagree with you either, because coming into this fight, I wasn't really looking into playing the Moreno side. Obviously, I was on that side in the first fight, but this I was actually more or less looking to play the fight doesn't go the distance. But then it's like, so we're getting to, real quick, we're getting -105 for the fight doesn't go the distance, versus the last fight we're getting 2.5 rounds -105 for the under. So now you're getting a whole nother 2.5 rounds. But then I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, this is probably either the same as most Figueiredo fights. It's either a quick finish or he's just countering him, and we're seeing the exact rendition of the first fight. So I think at -105, like, is it value? Yeah, for sure. But like, is there a good chance that this probably goes to decision because both of these guys are relatively tough and durable? Yeah, I think so. So I mean, this is a tough one to be honest because I don't think, to be honest, there's any bet justified here.
Yeah, I say stay away from it. I'm terrified of this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree with you. I can't disagree with you. Sorry. All right. Well, Luke, looks like it's just me and you running down main event. So, Marvin Vettori, Israel Adesanya, 2. Got a lot of heated rivalry here. It's a lot of bad blood. What do you got? Hot takes.
Right off the top, if you guys didn't watch the back and forth they did, I think it was on ESPN or whatever the other day, you guys got to go watch that. It was hilarious. There's like 10,000 sound bites you can take out of that, of them just barbing back and forth at each other. I think Vettori actually started speaking in Italian at one point.
No, it was really funny. No, there was a really funny meme somebody made where it was Vettori speaking Italian on one side of the camera, and the other side was Dana White putting that spaghetti inside that Italian roll, and he was eating it. That was hilarious.
Absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, there's some homework for the club and sub listeners right there. You guys got to check that shit out. But no, going into this, I don't know about you, Lags, but I know John was a big Vettori truther right off the top when the matchup was announced. He's like, I'm betting Vettori 100%. And
that was John. I am on the Vettori side, but I'm more moderately on the Vettori side. John is more the hammer Vettori here.
Yeah, 401k, put it on Vettori.
Yes.
That's
the John. Yeah. Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah. But going into it like pre-tape, I more so thought like the line was justified and whatnot with Adesanya being a significantly sized favorite. And I did a super, super deep dive back into it, and I ended up on Vettori at plus 225, I think. So do I think that Adesanya should be favored? 100%. I think probably minus 150, 60, 65% is probably fair. Anything higher than that, I think is a little ridiculous. Is Adesanya the better striker? Yes. Is he faster? Yes. Does he have more tools? Yes. We saw that in the first 2 rounds of the first fight. I will say right off the top, even though I'm on Vettori, I don't think that fight was a split at all. I think Adesanya clearly won the first 2 rounds. In my opinion, Vettori clearly won the second. So I thought a 29-28 unanimous for Izzy was the correct card. But I guess getting to those first 2 rounds, that the hand speed was evident, that inside kick was really killing Vettori. You could see that. But in that 3rd round, he went to the wrestling, he got it, and pretty much passed into half guard immediately, wrote out top time, and won the 3rd round. Going to Izzy and Jan, 4th and 5th round. Jan proactively wrestles largely and really commits the takedowns for the first time in the entire fight, gets him down, passes immediately. Izzy absolutely looks terrible, flattened, actually ended the fight mounded, and probably would have gotten finished actually if there was more time permitting. Those are literally
30 seconds.
Yeah. And so really that 3rd round of Vettori and the last 2 rounds of Jan are the only 2 times we've seen where he's actually been flattened. And when he has, he's been passed immediately. And so you can say, Luke, yeah, his takedown defense, 80-something%, it's elite. Actually, his first level takedown defense is very good. I will give him that 100%. Vettori, even when he shot earlier on, he struggled too. He tried to get trips and Adesanya got his hips away. And I get that. But so my take more so is on Vettori proactively wrestling. And I don't necessarily think he needs to get takedowns early in the fight. If he can just get inside, make it gritty, even from the clinch, get cage push, knees, just wear on him and just make it greasy and gritty. I think Vettori really needs to just play the long game with the fight, because if he just tries to sit there and hang out at space, for the better part of 25 minutes, he's going to lose that fight. I think he can be competitive on volume, because I think the first fight, I think it was 57-46 in terms of significant strikes. So Vettori kept up on volume, but once again, in those first 2 rounds, to me, it was pretty evident who was the better striker there. There is an athleticism, there was a speed, there was a technical gap between the two. I 100% get that. But Once again, plus 225. If he can make it a gritty, grindy type fight, wear on him early, wear on that gas tank, still keep up on volume, maybe drop the first, maybe drops the second, but still really, really push on him. I think those takedowns start to come in the latter rounds. Maybe they even come earlier than expected. But once again, when we've seen Adesanya flattened, it just has not looked good. He has not had much of an answer when both of his shoulders have been on the mat. Vettori, brown belt in jiu-jitsu, has a couple subs, has some submission acumen. And last point, why I think Vettori is a really good bet at plus 225 is because even in the first 3 rounds of the Jan fight, go back and watch, those were very, very slow paced in those first 3 rounds. Whereas, so Jan didn't really even push him that much. And you saw how tired Izzy was even at the end. I know it was up 205. Jan's a bigger guy. Yeah. I get that. But still, like I said, first 15 minutes, it wasn't super aggro. There wasn't a ton of strikes thrown. There wasn't a ton of clinching, a ton of grappling at all. But if Vettori can do that and get inside and just like I said, make it gritty and wear on that, I think he can actually wear Izzy down more than Jan did. And we saw what happened in the 4th and 5th there. So I don't know, man. Plus 225. No supreme degree of confidence. Like I said, I still think Izzy should be favored, but I think he can give him a fight, man. And not to mention that he's durable as shit. His defense actually statistically is pretty good. It's eats less than 3 significant strikes and defends at like 66%. So sorry, I didn't mean to try to steal the whole breakdown, but I don't know, man. I just think the fucking 30% Vettori is disrespectful.
Listen, without John on the pod, I need somebody else to, like this campfire. I love it. But, two things I'll bring up to this breakdown, though. So first thing, though, and I would say, I don't think it's a hot take really, but it may be a hot take to some. A lot of people are saying, Izzy's been the one that's been improving since that first fight. I would say it's conversely. I would say Marvin's been the one that's improving. I think Marvin's striking has come a long way since that first fight. And I would say that Izzy's ground game, we've only seen it tested really in that Marvin fight and then in the Jan fight. Obviously, yes, Jan, much bigger guy, but where are these so-called improvements? His takedown defense in general seems to be okay, but once he is on the mat in general, there's seemingly no get-up game. So my thing is, with one of the best grapplers in the division versus a guy who has shown grappling holes and, obviously, like I just said, no seeming improvements that we've seen, and a guy that's going to be attempting 6 to 8 takedowns at minimum over 25 minutes, and we're giving him a 30% chance to win, I think it's crazy, to be honest. I'm playing Vettori for a unit and a half at plus 230, and similar to you, I think this is a close, gritty fight. I don't see why Marvin should be this big of a dog.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe Izzy just sticks and moves, pot shots him, makes him pay. Well, like I said, wouldn't be shocked. Wouldn't be shocked at all.
And you brought up too, Marvin's ultra durable too. He's never been knocked out. So it's like, isn't Izzy KO possible? Sure. Obviously, Marvin's defense, isn't, it's okay, not best. But is it a foregone conclusion? Is he just going to nuke him? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, that was it for the 53rd episode of the Club and Sub podcast, UFC 263. You can find me at Lags_the Capper. You can find Luke at SWR_betting. We'll catch us here next week. If you like the show, as always, like and subscribe below. And good luck on all your bets, guys.